Well, the A's just won a series against the defending World Series champs. Next.
You are Locked On A's, your daily Oakland A's podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, A's fans, and welcome to Locked On A's, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the podcast we talk about the Oakland A's as long as we can, all year long. I am your guest host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Normally, I'm the host of the Locked On MLB podcast, but without a regular A's host that we have right now, well, I decided it's time to pinch hit and fill in because this has been a big week for the A's. For some bad news, and do you know what? Let's face it, some good news today in terms of play on the field. Remember, this is a game, and we're going to talk a little bit about JP Sears' victory, and you know what? What I hope A's fans can do over the course of this year. Hey, today's episode is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. And you can follow us at Locked On A's on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And please also, if you can, subscribe to the Locked On MLB podcast. And you can see me talk about every team all year long, where it's your team every day. Hey, let's get to the fact that the A's went to Texas, and you know what? They did all right. They did all right. They won the series. Now, today's game, or at least the game played on Thursday, we're dropping this one on the 12th of April. JP Sears, our left-handed starting pitcher, went into Texas as basically the rubber match of the game. And let's all admit it. You thought he may be able to do it, didn't you? Because the world of the no-hitter is so strange. It is so bizarre. Of course, we all know Dallas Braden has one. That's a perfect game on Mother's Day. Those years ago. But, you know, Greg Maddux doesn't. Pedro Martinez doesn't, although he would have. He had the 9-inning no-hitter but went extra innings. So maybe that's a bad example. But remember when the Braves had Glavine, Maddux, and Smoltz in their rotation? And do you remember which one of them threw a no-hitter? None of them. Kent Merker did, but not Glavine, Maddux, and Smoltz. Roger Clemens never did. It's a weird thing who gets to throw a no-hitter and who doesn't. So when I saw Sears, we saw Blanco earlier this year throw in his first start for Houston. I saw Sears getting into the seventh inning. I thought, this is totally it. This is just totally it. He's exactly the kind of pitcher who's going to throw a no-hitter. Now, Adolis Garcia got a base hit, and there's no shame in that. We all seen what Adolis Garcia has done, in the postseason and everything. He's a clutch player. And of course, there was a cloud of dust in the shape of Mark Kotze running out of the bullpen, running out of the dugout to get him out. Because we can't let anyone. He let up a hit. Fine, get him out, get him out, get him out. That's fine. That's fine. It was still a 1-0 game at that point, and and it was a little bit nerve-wracking. We can all admit that, right? Seth Brown's home run in the second inning was all of the offense going into the eighth, and you're thinking, hey, the dude's throwing a no-hitter. Now he's throwing a one-hitter. Are we really in such a rush to get this guy out of the game? Now, Sears had thrown 88 pitches, one for every key in the piano. I don't know. I felt like give him a chance to finish the seventh, but do you know what? I can't fault Kotze or the A's for managing this. Do you know why? Adams finished the seventh, fine. And then the no hits, no base runners. Miller came out, struck out 2 batters in the ninth. Well, 1-0 victory. Boom. And Garcia got that hit, and that was the only freaking hit of the game. There were a few walks. Sears wasn't completely without his, there was moments where he didn't have all the greatest control in the world. But 3 walks, 1 hit over 6 1/3 innings. You would ask that from anybody. Brown was all the offense in the game. He hit the home run, solo shot. And, not much else from the A's bats either. Brown got a double and a homer, and Toro got a hit, and McCann got a hit, and that's it. But baseball is so weird in some ways, though, because the other day, Langoliers had one of those fabulous games. He hit the 3 home runs, including the 2-run shot in the 9th inning. And, of course, he rides the bench today. I understand it's a day game after a night game, but it's and I understand there's a game in between there, but it's so interesting seeing that he managed to come in and just a few days after being the great hero. Gray pitched okay. I mean, he pitched 5 innings. I know he struck out 9 batters and only let up 1 walk and 3 hits and the 1 homer. I can't call someone pitching only 5 innings a great game. I can't do it. Old friend Marcus Semien got a stolen base. But in all, the A's went in to Texas and won 2 out of 3. And I'm sorry, won 3 out of 4. I meant to say 3 out of 4. And they had already, no, it was 2 out of 3. I'm sorry. I have the schedule up here that I'm looking at. So wait, wasn't it 2 out of 3? No, they won the series in Detroit. Now they've won the series in Texas. Now they come back to the Coliseum, and it's a weekend series, and they're going to be playing the Nats. And okay, they got swept by the Red Sox earlier in the year. They had to have a walk-off walk to pull any victory out the first couple week. But now they've won 2 series in a row. And the 2 games they won in Texas were pretty dramatic and showed a little bit of gumption from them. They showed a little bit of fight, a little bit of bite, a little bit of might. I can't think of a 4th one to rhyme there. But that's a little bit of fun having there. Sears pitched like an ace, and taking a team like the Rangers, who, everyone thinks is going to be, if not repeat as World Series champions, certainly be a major playoff team, to go into their home and win some games, that's not so bad. Right now, of course, if you don't know, haven't seen my show at Locked On MLB, you have to understand that I think that looking at the schedule or looking at the standings is an act of madness before Memorial Day. But this is a different situation. This is a madness that is following the A's this year is an act of madness because they're the lame duck franchise and everything. But I'm looking at them right now, and hey, there's you could say good things and bad things. They are not a 400 team. They have a winning percentage of 385. Okay. That's good enough for 3rd place. That's good enough for 3rd place. They are currently tied with the Seattle Mariners, a team that a lot of people were picking to win the division because they nearly won the division last year. They were a playoff team the year before. They have very good pitching, blah, 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 blah. Right now, they're tied with the A's. There you go. And who's in last place right now? Why, that would be the Houston Astros. And that's kind of sort of delicious, as the Kansas City Royals beat the Astros like a rented drum today. And who's in first place? Well, that would be the Texas Rangers, who are a mere 1 game above 500. And they've got to that point because they dropped 2 out of 3 to the A's. That's right. When you look back at this season at baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, sometime in the future, you will see that in mid-April, the A's were a 3rd place team. Is this going to be the apex of the team, of the season for this year? It very well might be. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the excitement we're going to have moving forward, why I want to see some of you at the Coliseum this weekend. I'm going to be going to some games, certainly throughout June and July, and I may even catch a game earlier. But just bear with me because there's one thing I am not going to be, and that is the fun police. And I will explain what I mean by that in just a moment. This podcast is brought to you in part by Ibotta. Do you know what? Spring is here. And so it's out with the old and in with the new. But don't splurge on anything new without getting cash back in return when you use Ibotta. You know what? Flowers won't be the only thing you're growing. When you use Ibotta, you can watch your cash grow with every purchase you make. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys. So you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That's a third of the A's payroll. That could cover the costs of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps just give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add up your offers in the app, upload the receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or to gift cards. Join the over 50 million users and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including all your favorite grocery stores: Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and then use promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you watching one of those channels like Fox Sports or ESPN and hearing lots of screaming and everything? You got to turn down the volume. Let me make a suggestion. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you to bring the best and the biggest stories in sports without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. So, it's going to sound like I'm saying something satirical here, but I want A's fans to try to be there when the A's come back on the 12th, this Friday, to play Washington in the Coliseum. They just finished giving you two series on the road against two teams that were in first place when they showed up. Detroit Tigers had their home opener. They won the home opener. They lost the next two games. Okay? The Rangers are the defending World Series champion. And I guarantee you, both the Tigers and the Rangers looked at their schedule, circled them, and said, oh boy, here comes some wins right now. And lo and behold, they didn't get them. And when you think about how tight the American League Central can be, and the fact that if the Tigers are in a dogfight with Cleveland or with Kansas City or whomever to win that Central, if they're only a game or so out when the season ends, they can look back at early April and say, remember when they faced the A's, who looked like they couldn't win a game unless it was a bases loaded walk? We lost that series at home. If the Rangers are in a dogfight for the AL West, if the Astros dust themselves off and have the kind of season people are expecting, or the Mariners start to play and the Rangers find themselves, God, we're trailing on the last weekend of the series. Remember when you dropped two at home, including one where the guy hit 3 home runs, including one with a 2-run shot in the 9th, and some dude threw a no-hitter into the 7th? You can wreak havoc. If you start to build enough of these in a row, do you know what that is? That's a winning streak. That's a winning season. Washington is not a good team. They're not. So they're coming to the Coliseum. You have a chance to see the Oakland A's win a game or two this weekend. Then comes St. Louis. And St. Louis is a weird team. There's a lot of talent on that team. and the Arenados and the Goldschmidts are still there, but they're not quite sure what they are yet. They're off to kind of a bumpy, weird start right now, and one that when you take a look at them, this is a team that looked like they were going to be prohibitive favorites to win and win and win. Now, yeah, they have a better record than the A's, but they're in dead last place right now. Early, but still, they're off to kind of a sloppy start. In other words, these are neither one of these teams. The rebuilding Nationals and the what the hell are we Cardinals are both teams that you think, you can steal a win or two there. I don't think either team are going to sweep the A's at home. And I think if the A's win on Friday, that puts them in the driver's seat to just split the next two. And guess what? You have a chance. You have a chance to win another series. This is early enough in the season when you take a look up and go like, hey, what if we just upset people? What if we act spoiler and just hang around for a little bit? Let's take advantage of the Astros' terrible start. Let's take advantage of the fact that the Angels win a couple, lose a couple. I mean, they're absolutely a very confusing team. There's a reason to go to the Coliseum, but there's another reason, and the reason why I'm being silly and looking at the standings, but I'm actually not. Here's the deal: this year's not going to be fun for A's fans, and I initially for today's podcast was going to talk more about Sacramento, talk a little bit more about Vegas, talk a little bit more about Fisher. But you know what? There's no shortage of that. You're going to hear nothing but that. So why not enjoy what might be the only time in the entire year that you can actually kind of sort of enjoy watching the A's? Well, the only time of the year you can say, hey, they're a third place team. Maybe they'll do something. I'm not the fun police, especially for a team like the A's, especially for a team that is expected to, by most people's standard, the A's are probably going to lose 100 games. Let's be kind and say 100 games. And so there's 162 games a year. And most people believe that this team is going to lose 100. Okay? If they do, the A's already have won 5. So that means if they lose 100 games, the Oakland A's will only have 57 more wins ever. Ever. Because we know they're not playing there next year. And what I'm going to ask you to do is this. And I know it's a very hard thing for me to do because the bitterness, the anger, the betrayal that has been felt by Oakland A's fans has been absolutely staggering. It's something we haven't felt since the days of the Montreal Expos and arguably the days of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Okay? And it may be even worse because at least Brooklyn fans, well, I guess Brooklyn has been the biggest one because they had to go to the stadium of their bitter rival when Brooklyn fans had to adopt the Mets. Montreal lost the Expos, but they still had the Canadiens. Once the A's leave, I understand that's going to be it for Oakland. I know you can root for teams in the Bay, but people don't live in the Bay, don't understand what that means. And the anger and the bitterness, I'm not going to give Fisher a dime. You not giving Fisher a dime is not going to help anything. They're not coming back. And no protest is going to do anything. And you may not want to put anything into his pocketbook at all for the rest of the year. And this, in the final segment, I'm going to make my plea. And my plea is this: put the bitterness aside, because eventually the bitterness will be over and you will regret not having a few moments of happiness. Bear with me. This episode is brought to you in part by our good friends over at FanDuel. Now, this is a time where there's all sorts of sports going on everywhere. It's playoff time in the NBA, and the Stanley Cup Finals are coming around the corner. Maybe the Sharks will do something. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on anything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And we're also going to talk a little bit to our friends over at LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn, for those of you who don't know, has the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. If you're struggling to close deals, business to business selling, it's tougher than ever. You need to use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. What is it? It's a sales intelligent platform that keeps professionals effectively prospect and engage high value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers, surface key signals, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you could try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon to get started. And one more quick reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. It's available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. It's here for you 24/7, and you got local extras of Locked On plus national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire's TV channel app. I understand the bitterness and the anger. I understand you don't want to be able to put money in Fisher's pocket. I get it. I totally get it. But in the end, you're just punishing yourself in a way. In the end, you're going to see in a few years, there's going to be a summer day when some of you will adopt the Giants. Some of you will make the trek to Sacramento. And some of you may walk away from sports altogether the way sports have walked away from the East Bay. And you'll just wish you could go see another game. You'll just wish you could have those days where they're banging the drum and you have the peanuts and the seagulls are flying around Mount Davis. And you'll wish you see the race with Ricky and Raleigh and what was the other one? There's Ricky, there's Raleigh, is it Reggie? Why am I blanking out? Oh well, Ricky's gonna win every time anyway. Forgive me, I forgot who Eckersley. Of course, it's Eckersley. Forgive me. For a minute I had a mild brain freeze. You're going to miss seeing all the people in the green jerseys and seeing the wide range of A's jerseys that you see. Some people are the old school wearing Reggie and Catfish, and a lot of people wearing Ricky or Canseco or McGuire or Stu or Eck or Hendu, or maybe you'll see a Tejada or a Zito, or maybe you'll see a Mulder or a Sean Doolittle, or you'll see a Donaldson or a Coco Crisp, or you'll see a Chapman, whomever it is. Maybe even a player, maybe a Rooker or someone currently on the team. Wear your Sears jersey. And you're going to miss that. You're going to miss those days where there's only 6,000 or 7,000 people in the Coliseum, but they're all going nuts and playing celebration at the end of a game where they have to make that big long run from the dugout to home plate on a walk-off win. You're going to miss that. You're going to miss those moments. And when the bitterness fades away, you're going to say, I wish I could see it one more time. Wish you can get one more Oakland shirt or piece of memorabilia. Yeah, it goes in Fisher's pocket, but you know what? At this point, it's not going to change anything. The Coliseum's going to be raised eventually, and they're going to put buildings up there, or have it be a complex. I don't know what it will be, and neither do you. But I'm going to tell you a little story of something that happened to me. My father, may he rest in peace, was a Giants fan. And he was a Giant fan back in the days of the Polo Grounds in New York. And the Polo Grounds were, for a period of time, the stadium in New York. The Giants, when they played in New York, played there. And the Giants initially were the great dynasty of New York. For a while, the Yankees played there too. When Babe Ruth first arrived from Boston to New York, the Yankees were playing their home games in the Polo Grounds. And the 1921 and 22 World Series were played entirely in the Polo Grounds, as they were between the Yankees and the Giants. When the Giants left for San Francisco after the 1957 season, the Mets were formed in 1962, and they played in the Polo Grounds until Shea Stadium was finished. Also, the New York football Giants played in the Polo Grounds for a period of time as well. That was the hub of New York sports, and NFL championships, prize fights, World Series titles, some of the most famous moments in baseball history, the Bobby Thompson home run, Willie Mays catch, the first years of Babe Ruth, so many great moments were played right there. And when the Mets abandoned the Polo Grounds for Shea Stadium, the Wreckers Ball showed up, and it was in Harlem, right across the river from Yankee Stadium. The Yankees built that stadium basically as a giant middle finger to the Polo Grounds. As they were kicked out of the Polo Grounds, they built a big, huge stadium right across the river where they eventually started outdrawing the Giants. They leveled the Polo Grounds, and they built up a series of apartments up there in Harlem. They were called the Polo Ground Apartments, and there was a big banner that said, "Welcome to the Polo Grounds, the home of the Giants and Willie Mays," and there was a plaque where home plate was. I remember I was living in New York at the time in 1995, and it was actually around the time of the strike, and all I wanted to do was go to a baseball game. Lots of people were bitter. Lots of people were angry that the strike was going on, and I knew the second the strike was over, I was going to be at the first game. Do you know why? I was bitter and angry because I wanted to see a game. And when the games began, I was there. I wasn't worried about punishing the owner. I wanted to experience baseball myself. But it was the winter of 95, and the lockout and strike was going on, and no one knew when the season was going to start. And I walked over to the Polo Grounds in Harlem, and I was standing on the steps that looked down at the Polo Ground apartments, and I was taking photographs. And these three boys from must about 7, 8, or 9 years old, who were living in the projects in Harlem, were there, and they saw me, and they asked me, "Mister, what are you taking a picture of?" And I said, "I'm taking a picture of where the ballpark used to be." And one of the kids looked at me incredulously, and he pointed across the river. He said, "No, no, no, no. That's the ballpark," pointing to Yankee Stadium, which you could see from the hill. And I said, "No." I pointed to the apartments, and I said, "Do you guys live down there?" And these three kids said, "Yeah." And I said, "Did you know where you used to live used to be a stadium? The Yankees played there, the Mets played there, the Giants played there. It's called the Polo Grounds." He said, "Yeah, it's the Polo Ground Apartments." I said, "Yeah, that used to be a baseball stadium." And the three kids looked at me, and it was clear that they're like, "Wait, this guy's not BSing us." And they suddenly looked over at where they lived, and they said, one of them said, "Oh, that's cool." Now look it, I don't know if they did any research of it. I didn't know if they were wondering, what the heck is this weird white guy with a camera taking pictures of our apartment doing? But for a moment, the place where they lived turned into a very cool place. And they realized I'm living on kind of a sacred sports ground. Eventually, that's what's going to happen to the Coliseum. You're going to remember the A's played there. Maybe your kids will if you're about my age. But a generation from now, you might as well be talking about the Roman Colosseum, not the Oakland Coliseum, something that took place so long ago. And then when you get a generation after that, it'll be a mere rumor saying, "Wow, can you believe that sports took place here?" Yeah, it's not a rumor now. Put your bitterness aside. Bitterness fades away. Put your anger aside. Anger will be subsided. Think about that moment a couple of years from now where all you want to do is go to an A's game. You can now. Reverse boycotts, sell the team, none of it's going to work. They're gone. They're gone. There is no best case scenario. So now be a little selfish. Treat yourself, because in 2025, you're not going to be able to do it. And in 2035, you'll say, God, why couldn't I put my anger on the shelf and go to another game? And in 2045, 20 years after they moved and they're probably still playing in Sacramento, you'll say, I'd give anything to go to a game. That person 20 years from now is talking to you right now. Go to the game. Tickets are available. So go to Locked On A's on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Making a plea to be positive, put your pride aside, and enjoy something while you still can, before you become that kid looking on going, really? They played sports there? This has been Locked On A's. I am your guest host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.